Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is the Institute Saga 1 in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 21, Dreams Revealed. Mystique. Clark. Clark stepped up beside the blue-skinned woman and looked out over the ocean. For several minutes, they simply stood in companionable silence, then Clark spoke. I heard you turned down Xavier's invitation. Mystique sighed, trying to marshal her thoughts. Clark's comment had been just that, a comment. No anger, no disappointment, merely curiosity. And you wondered why? If you want to tell me, I'll listen. Clark shrugged. If you don't, the decision is yours and I'll respect it and won't ask again. A smile tugged at the corners of Mystique's mouth and her yellow eyes glanced sideways, taking in the profile of what was probably the most powerful being on the face of the planet. And one with the largest heart. It's hard to explain and you need to know my history to understand. She said slowly. My power manifested when I was young, my blue skin and red hair, but my shape-changing skills took a long time to manifest. As a result, I had to hide from everyone. I spent my youth wrapped up like a mummy, excluded from society, rejected by my family. The day I realized I could change my skin color was the happiest day of my life. It meant that I could truly hide. I spent years mastering my power, learning my limitations and how to work around them. I became a criminal, with 1,000 faces. I could rob anywhere and literally vanish in seconds. I could walk past those I had robbed and they would never know it was me. Yet I still feared what would happen if I slipped and revealed my true self. My years with Sabretooth were nice, we were both outcasts. However, our son didn't inherit the X gene and he left us, blaming us for being what he could not be. Soon after that, Victor and I split. Kurt was the result of my fling with Azazel, one of Magneto's allies. Azazel was experimenting with forcing mutations and he used Kurt as a test subject. I found out too late and fled soon after, pausing only to make sure that Kurt was safe with the family that had adopted him. Clark looked down at Mystique as he placed a comforting arm around her shoulders. Leaning against him, she continued. When I found Anna, I was at my lowest. She became my reason for living. I took a new name and raised her as best I could. A mutant friend of mine predicted that Anna would become a powerful mutant, and I didn't want her to make the same mistakes I had. And then I was forced away from her by Magneto. Once again, I had to leave. I've seen too much pain, Clark. Too much hate, both from others and myself. Xavier's dream is a great dream, one I wish I could believe in, but, even with your help, I don't think it will happen. I won't oppose you, I'll help out if I can, but I've been in the heart of the fire for too long, and I'm tired of it. I've seen too much, done too much. I've stolen, threatened, spied, and even killed. Xavier dreams of a better world, one I want for Kurt and Anna, but I know, deep in my heart, that there's no place for me in that perfect world. Clark looked down at her again, seeing her unfocused gaze aimed beyond the horizon. Mystique, I believe that everyone deserves a chance at redemption. A chance to say, this is who I wish to become. You may have done acts that you now regret in the past, but you have also done good. It's because of you that I have such a wonderful sister. How you raised her, how she grew under your care, that tells me that whatever else you have done, there is still hope in you, still goodness. All I ask is that you don't throw away the chance to be with your children. You don't have to join our ranks, but don't run away either. If you have doubts, wait and see what happens. You sound like a fortune cookie. Mystique commented and Clark managed to choke down his laughter. Reaching into his jacket pocket, he pulled out a small paper bag and handed it over to Mystique. She looked at him, then opened the bag and grinned. You bring the nicest gifts, she said, pulling one of the cookies out. I think I'll probably stick around, just to see what happens, you understand. But I won't stay at Xavier's. We seem to have a large cottage that needs a tenant. Clark suggested and Mystique gave a rueful chuckle before swallowing the mouthful of cookie. I'll consider it. Clark nodded and returned his gaze to the horizon. Mystique sighed softly and did the same. Perhaps, with people like Clark around, Xavier's dream did have a chance. And maybe, just maybe, there might even be a small place in it even for one like herself. Maybe. So you got it? Mist nodded and held out a small package. Yes, sir. Full records of every unusual incident in the town of Smallville. May I ask why? Magneto took the box and opened it, extracting the memory cards. Looking at it, he moved to his desk and inserted the first card into the computer terminal before replying. Some of my agents have been reporting incidents that bear the hallmarks of our hopefully deceased enhanced human adversary Superman. With these records, we can try to find the lab that created Superman, the project that gave him his powers or the incident that made him the man he was. And destroy it? Vought asked curiously. Magneto shook his head. And claim it for ourselves. The evolution wave will create a utopia for mutants. No more hatred, no more discrimination. But there will be dissidents, as there always are, so we will need to hold the advantage. And if the project that gave a mere human such incredible powers can be claimed by us, can you imagine what it will do for a member of Homo Superior? Mist's eyes widened as the realization hit her. She had been part of the team that had assembled the fragmentary reports about Superman into a coherent whole, and the enhanced human had been on a power level far above most mutants. And if whatever had given him his powers worked on those with an X gene. Wow. Indeed. Magneto smirked. We already stand far above the ignorant masses, raised by our abilities, our genetic advantages. But if we can acquire the powers of the Superman, we will be able to reach higher still. We are already the next stage of human evolution. With this, we can attain the stage beyond that. Homo Superior Rex. Mist felt herself marveling at the passion of Magneto's vision. His dream would come true, even if she had to sacrifice herself for it. No way. You had trouble with your powers as a child too. Mystique laughed as Clark escorted her into the dining room where one of the legendary Martha Clark lunches was waiting. Oh, he did. Martha grinned as Clark made frantic hushing signs. Mystique turned to look at her and she grinned. Oh, he always had good control over his strength, but the first time he discovered his heat vision? We lost half a field before it could be put out. Mom. Clark protested as the other occupants of the room started to smile. You don't have to tell them that. But it's so much fun. Martha twinkled. Super breath. I managed to catch Daisy. Clark protested. She wasn't hurt at all. Daisy? Evan asked and Martha giggled. Family cow, Clark sneezed and sent her flying. And for 3 months, Dad would dive for cover whenever my nose twitched. Clark reminisced. Flying. Martha said and Clark blushed. Rogue and Kitty exchanged glances, then leaned forwards to catch Clark's defense. That tree was going to fall down in the next storm, anyway. Fall, yes. Get sent flying because you were pretending to be a fighter plane. No. I managed to get it all cleared away, so it was fine. And the log pile did need topping up. Clark said, ignoring the sniggering amongst the younger residents and the highly amused expressions of the older ones. Cryo breath. What's that? Mystique asked curiously. I can freeze things by breathing on them. Clark explained. And the kids loved the skating. Because normally you can't skate in the middle of summer. Martha smirked. He froze half the lake. The top half. Okay. Clark said firmly. I suggest that we put this conversation aside for later and enjoy dinner instead. Martha grinned, but acquiesced gracefully, motioning for Mystique to take a seat with the other adults at the head of the table. Back to school tomorrow. Rogue said softly. I am looking forwards to it. J.A., Untamanda will be happy that Clark and you are back. Kurt added, helping himself to some potatoes. Speaking of which, Mystique said. I was hoping I could borrow Clark tomorrow. Mr. Franklin's had to leave for a family emergency and I'm having trouble finding a cover for the physics. Ed. Lessons. Sure. Clark shrugged. Any news about the Brotherhood? I think they're at Asteroid M by now. Mystique said. So they won't be at school. Any idea what Magneto could be planning? Ororo asked and Mystique shrugged. Only that it included a gem of Situk and some green glowing rocks. Xavier frowned. Do you mean the gem of Sidorak? That is the relic that my half-brother used to become Juggernaut. Mystique was about to answer in the affirmative when she caught the concerned look that Clark and Martha had swapped. A moment later, Martha spoke. The green rocks, slightly heavier than lead, glowing with an odd green aura and looking like giant crystals, albeit fragile ones. Mystique nodded and Clark closed his eyes. Kryptonite. Damn. Color me clueless. Evan said slowly and Clark looked down at the table. It's something I came across in Smallville and it was the bane of my childhood. Kryptonite is an unusual mineral that was created when Krypton exploded. It gives out a form of radiation harmless to most, in small doses at least, but which causes me intense pain. Fortunately, the range is limited. However, I did some research into it before I relocated the fortress and kryptonite has some very unusual properties which change as you place more in close proximity. How much did he get? Mystique frowned as she sorted through her memory. Last I heard, about 5 cubic meters? No, 5 meters cubed. Martha and Clark both winced. He was using most of it to generate power for his hideout. Mystique added. About 3/4, I think. Magneto has 125 cubic meters of kryptonite. Clark muttered. Why do I not think that this is going to end well? Even a hand-sized crystal was a real problem. If he's using most of it to generate power, though. Evans offered and Clark shook his head. That still leaves over 40 cubic meters. That much kryptonite, and with the Kryptonian tech. Everyone stared at Clark, who slowly looked up from the table with a smirk. Magneto took the Kryptonian tech. He said slowly. The specialized tech optimized for scanning and analysis, the tech with a fold space data feed back to the fortress. For several moments, no one moved, then both Rogue and Martha glanced at each other before smirking as well. Kryptonian tech is incredibly advanced. Martha said. Even Forge has difficulty with it, and he has Clark and Rogue telling him how it works and what it does. Magneto may have a tech wizard, Rogue continued, but he or she'll be trayin' to understand something totally new to them. And since THA data feed is integrated into THA central core, they'll probably overlook it, allowing us to hack into their files and find out just what they are planning. Clark finished. Looks like we may be able to do something after all. For a moment, the room was silent until Evan spoke. And for those of us who don't speak geek, this means we can find out what my old friend is planning. Xavier said triumphantly. Magneto looked round, catching Mist's attention. Something wrong, Lord Magneto. Magneto continued to look round, his expression confused, then he leaned back in his chair and rubbed his forehead. Lord Magneto. Just a feeling. Magneto said slowly. For a moment, it felt like something I don't know about is going to become a real problem. Mist and Chrome exchanged glances, then Magneto leaned forwards again. So, Chrome, how are you doing with duplicating that superconductor? Chapter 22, Nightmares Revealed. Shit. The flat, overly calm statement caught his attention and Xavier looked across at where Clark and Forge were staring at the monitor in front of them, their faces almost bleached white with shock. Even without trying, he could feel the horror and fear rolling off Forge. What is it? He asked and Clark slowly looked up. We've got problems. Big problems. We're looking at the end of the world here, sir. If you'll give me a few minutes to upload our findings, we need to head out to recruit some friends. I think we need everyone who is combat capable for this, even Mystique. Hell, especially Mystique. Xavier stared at him, then nodded. Very well, Clark. Clark nodded, then tapped his communicator. Logan? Do you know the number for either Cap or Fury? And do you know where Reed Richards is? The airborne aircraft carrier seemed to grow in the cockpit canopy as the Blackbird sliced through the air towards it. In the co-pilot's seat, Scott looked at the giant craft and whistled. How the heck did they get that to fly? They use 4 special propellers. Logan said from his second row seat. Cap explained it to me with Iron Man giving technical details. The wings themselves contain jets that provide extra lift while the rotors include electromagnetic inductors to increase the airflow and thus the lift. Plus, the entire craft is lighter than it looks. Runs off a nuclear reactor. Clark slightly changed the angle of approach and the Blackbird rose slightly, giving them a view of 3 of the 4 wings and the engines which took up most of the middle of them. A beep sounded and Clark reached out to flick a switch. Unknown plane, this is shield control. Identify yourself or be fired upon. Shield control, this is the X-Jet carrying the full X-Men team and recruits. We have information of an Armageddon-level event with a high probability of worldwide extinction and as such require aid in dealing with it. We request permission to come aboard in order to divulge the nature of the threat and potential methods of dealing with it. The resulting silence lasted almost half a minute as Clark adjusted course once again, maneuvering to keep the distance between the Blackbird and the helicarrier constant. After a few moments, another voice sounded over the radio. "Logan, you there?" "I'm here, Steve," Logan said. The kid told the truth. "This is big." "How big?" Captain America asked almost instantly and Logan gave a sad smile. "Omega-3, Steve." "Omega-3. The resulting silence somehow conveyed extreme shock, then Steve spoke once more. "You have permission to land. Do you have VTOL capability?" "We do," Clark said. "Then land on the illuminated pad. I'll see you there." The radio clicked as the transmission ended and Scott glanced back at the grim-looking Logan. "Omega-3. Endgame for everyone, kid," Logan explained. "Total endgame." Steve Rogers watched the black plane swoop past overhead before it slowed and arced round, coming to a halt above the illuminated pad and slowly descending. "Heck of a plane," Tony Stark noted. "I wonder how much it costs." Steve shrugged and Tony lowered his helmet faceplate, activating his scanning systems. A moment later, a muffled curse emerged. "What? That plane it's using Gravitic technology to descend. My sensors can detect the space/time warping it causes, but the power levels are all wrong for that, and the frequency is split. Multiple? How the hell is it doing that?" "My guess would be something linked to Superman." Steve shrugged. "He's the one who brought me back from being iced, so something like this. No problems. I heard that Fury's going mental trying to find that fortress of solitude of his." Tony smirked, opening his helmet again. "He's had Antarctica scanned 3 times already and still can't find it. He's going to send in ground teams next week. Not sure how that will help, but..." Steve started to nod, then he froze. A moment later, he started to laugh, causing Tony to give him an odd look. "Superman said that no matter how much Fury searched Antarctica, he'd never find the fortress. He never actually said that that's where the fortress was." Tony stared at him, jaw dropped as he followed the logic. "Oh. My. Superman pranked Fury. And used me to do it, as well," Steve said admiringly. "Damn, I like that kid." "Logan. Fury." Fury nodded and then motioned for the Avengers and the X-Men to take their seats in the briefing hall. Superman walked to the front of the hall and looked out at them. "Avengers, I am Superman, the last member of an alien race." "Thou art Kryptonian." A large, blond man interrupted. "Know this, last son of Krypton, Asgard didst mourn for the loss of thy race, for thine kindred had great potential indeed. Should Asgard be of any use to thee, thou hast simply to ask, and the boon thou dost crave shall be thine. I swear this as Thor, son of Odin, to thee, last of those who we had hoped wouldst be our allies." Superman inclined his head slightly in acknowledgement and thanks. "First, let me introduce the others. Cyclops is going to lead the X-Men on this mission. Due to a certain situation that we have discovered, I cannot travel to the target location, Asteroid M, since doing so will kill me. Storm, who can command the weather, is the second in command while Logan is third. The others are Rogue, Meta Power Absorption, Nightcrawler, Teleporter and Shadowcat, Phasing. We also have Mystique, who has agreed to join us for reasons of her own. She's a shapeshifter. Captain, if you could introduce your team to mine." Steve Rogers stood up. "I'm an Enhancel, superior speed and strength. Iron Man is currently my second, he uses technology. Thor stands with us, he's very strong, has limited flight capabilities and can control lightning. Banner is our scientific mind and can transform into Hulk, extreme strength and power, but not that good with complex stuff. Kurt looked quizzical and the slim scientist chuckled. Basically, Hulk smash. Hawkeye is our distance specialist, he's an archer who never misses. Black Widow is a professional assassin. War Machine is like Iron Man, but with heavier weapons. He was here for a different reason and we recruited him. As each person was mentioned, they lifted their hand or otherwise signaled acknowledgement. Superman waited for a moment, then resumed, placing a memory stick into the lectern before him and tapping at it to bring up several pictures and schematics. Asteroid M. The base of operations for Magneto and his acolytes. We have files on some of them and will pass them round, but there will be several whose powers and abilities we have no idea about. More of that later. The primary problem is that Asteroid M is currently being reconfigured in order to generate something that Magneto calls the evolution wave. Derived from the radiation generated by a mystical relic, the Gem of Sidorak, the evolution wave induces mutations in anyone it hits, turning normal people into mutants and causing secondary mutations in those with pre-existing powers. Based on the files we've copied from Magneto's systems, he believes that there will be a fatality rate of about 15% in normal humans during the process, and between 5 and 10% of mutants. The effect on enhanced humans and aliens was ignored due to the low absolute numbers and Magneto's hatred of non-mutant powered individuals. His figures would undoubtedly be right, except that he is using a large amount of kryptonite to boost the power of the wave for worldwide reach. Large amounts of kryptonite act differently to small amounts and we do not believe that he was able to model it correctly, assuming that it occurred to him to even try. What he has actually created will destroy humanity entirely. Several gasps sounded and Superman stared at the suddenly wide-eyed people in front of him. The amount of kryptonite he is using will indeed resonate with the generated wave, but will change its properties. Forge, a mutant with expertise with machines but who is useless in a combat environment, and myself were able to accurately model what will happen. The kryptonite will modify the waveform, turning it from an evolution wave to a genocide wave. Death tolls are estimated to be 96% for normal humans, 99% for mutants with most of the survivors being depowered and 98% of the enhanced humans with again, the majority of the survivors losing their powers. The wave would kill me. I don't know what it'll do to any other aliens due to lack of information on their physiology. In other words, if we can't stop this device from being activated, the world will effectively come to an end. Everyone stared Superman, who nodded. On my honor and reputation, I swear this to be true. I would have called in the Fantastic Four, but they're currently elsewhere and couldn't make it in time. Magneto intends to launch the wave very soon and is currently building up power in large capacitance banks in order to unleash it. By his own data, he will release the wave in about 30 hours. We have that long to prepare and launch our assault. Cap, any ideas? Captain America rose from his seat and glanced at Fury. The helicarrier is already on course to Asteroid M, but will not reach it until after the wave has been released. Nevertheless, Director Fury has ordered the location of Asteroid M to be locked into the helicarrier's navigation systems. Should the wave be released, the helicarrier will ram and destroy the asteroid. Should we fail, at least the asteroid will be destroyed. As I discussed with Superman earlier, the assault force will use the Blackbird to get to the asteroid. Both teams will be aboard. I will have primary command with Cyclops as my second. We have worked together before. Not a problem. Scott said. It's an honor, Captain. We will be escorted by 2 Quinjets, each carrying a squad of agents to secure our landing site and cover our retreat. Due to Magneto's powers, the Quinjets will keep their distance until we launch our attack. Now for what we are facing. Thanks to Superman and Mystique, we have a partial overview of the forces we'll be going up against. Magneto himself is a master of magnetism, able to control and manipulate most metals from a distance. So, you're all mutants? Hawkeye asked and Storm nodded. We are. I hope that you do not have a problem with that. Hell no. Hawkeye grinned. I'm a mutant myself, got the X gene and everything. I can't make out colors, I see in black, white and shades of gray, but I have what some called a low-level precognition power. I know just where to shoot to achieve what I want, assuming it's possible. Heck, Cap's seen me do shots he thought couldn't be done. He's right. Black Widow chimed in. I'm just very skilled. He has about 2 seconds of precog. Makes fighting him quite interesting. Hawkeye grinned. That is cool. Kurt enthused. Hawkeye shrugged and turned. So, Superman's sister. Adopted. Martha adopted me when she learned I was alone. Rogue said softly. Mystique used to be my mother before THA. Mystique nodded, her gaze unfocused. I was, until Magneto forced me back into his service. Rogue was kind enough to forgive me. Out of interest, Scott said from the pilot's seat, I heard about a group called the Howling Commandos. Why aren't they helping? They're currently tracking down a monster in Alaska, a Wendigo, or something like that. Steve explained. Fury was going to recall them, but including them in the mission would have cost us too much time, and even with the Quinjet that they've got, they won't be able to make it until maybe an hour or two before the wave is released. Means we're pretty much it. Logan growled. Just like old times, huh, Steve? Steve grinned and turned his attention to the horizon. A moment later, a beep sounded. Cyclops here. Cyclops, it's Clark. Forge and I just did another upload, please tell me you're going as fast as you can. Cyclops frowned at the radio. Airspeed at max, Clark. ETA is 5 hours, 32 minutes. Why? Because it seems that the timing has changed. The wave is being released in just under 7 hours. We don't know how, but they've managed to cut a full 12 hours off the charge time. Looks like the device Forge gave you may be needed after all. Good luck. For a moment, the plane was silent, then Logan summed up the situation perfectly. Shit. Chapter 23, Forlorn Hope. Stealth mode active. Cyclops' quiet statement seemed to enhance the tension in the plane. In the co-pilot's seat, Wolverine craned his neck and grunted. Got it, scanners have locked on. It's drifted about 100 meters from the last noted position, adjusting course. Cyclops nodded and Wolverine glanced back at the others. We'll be going in hard, Tin, Storm, Jean, you'll cover us until we can get the bird down. Tin. Tony grumbled. What a stupid nickname. Okay, moving to the hatch now. Remember the plan. Wolverine continued, ignoring the low-level muttering from the irritated armor-wearer. Group 1 with Cap, heavy combat, control room. Group 2 with me, infiltration, power core. Mystique lead Group 2 as she's visited before and knows the way. Any last-minute snafus? No? Good. Excellent motivational speech. Cyclops snarked and Wolverine glared at him before releasing a grunt of amusement and turning back to the console. Stop. Pacing. Fury ground out as Superman passed by him for what had to be at least the 100th time. We both know you'll die if you head there now, and the helicarrier can only go so fast. So. Stop. Pacing. What do you want to do, get out and push? Superman halted so abruptly that his cape flared forwards and briefly wrapped around his legs. Fury's eye suddenly widened. Don't even think about it. We have too much stuff on the hangar decks, if we go faster, the slipstream will blow it off. Superman stood still for a moment, then resumed his pacing. There must be something we can do, something that'll change the situation. We'll get there and grab that damned gem from, what? The gem. Superman whispered. The gem of Sidorak. Fury. Get me cleared for the Alpha Penitentiary, I need to speak to Juggernaut. Before Fury could respond, Superman had vanished from the bridge. A second later, the carrier trembled slightly as a sonic boom marked his departure. Someone contact Alpha and get him cleared. Fury sighed. And ask the Warden to find out just what the hell he's planning. Lord Magneto? What is it? Magneto rose from the throne-like command chair, frowning in concentration as he tried to localize the oddity that had briefly caught his attention. My lord. I felt something. Magneto said almost meditatively. Something familiar. Proximity scanners show negative for intruders, Lord Magneto. Frenzy said from her station. Nevertheless. Magneto murmured, then his eyes widened in horrified realization. I can sense an area of nothing. Like Xavier's mansion, but closer. We're under attack. Sound the alarm. The Blackbird's engine howl drowned out the end of the shout as it hurtled past the tower, slowing dramatically as the engine's reversed thrust, causing it to spin as it almost plummeted onto the main landing pad at the base of the command tower, even as three figures, one black-clad, the second in black and green and the third red and gold, rose into the air. Ambush. Surprise attacks are generally amongst the most devastating tactics used in war. The effect is dependent on multiple factors. The physical aspect, despite what many believe, is one of the lesser aspects of a viable ambush. The most important aspect is, and always has been, psychological. A surprise attack, one that has not been prematurely detected, comes as a total shock to the ones being attacked. Having believed themselves to be safe, they must adjust their reflexes from peace to war, a process that normally takes some time. The actual effect tends to be confusion and panic as the situation that they had believed was stable changes without warning, in ways that they don't expect. The first stage is disbelief. The ambushees have to try and adapt to the fact that all of a sudden there is someone now trying to hurt or kill them. Many fail to make it past this stage before dying or being injured beyond fighting. Next there is realization. The impossible is actually true. They are being attacked and need to fight back. After that, retaliation. Usually unplanned and uncoordinated, yet it is this stage that determines if an ambush succeeds or fails. Training is needed in order to get the previous stages out of the way as fast as possible. True warriors often act almost instantly in an ambush situation, their subconscious making the decisions needed to survive, following the brutal logic of war. Fight or flee, kill or be killed. In situations like these, emotions are a liability, compassion a sure way to get killed. Amateurs shatter in an ambush, professionals tend to recover with a speed that most would deem impossible. Magneto's acolytes, despite their powers and impressive individual fighting skills, were not true professionals, were not trained in teamwork. The Avengers were, and the X-Men, although the latter still had much to learn, at least knew what they could do. And they meant to do it this way. Mystique said quietly, trying to avoid getting the attention of the defenders. You have the device. Got it. Kitty answered nervously. Kurt patted her reassuringly on the shoulder. Ve'il Dugva, Kitty. Ve half Logan. Yeah, against Magneto, I'm a burden thanks to my damned metal bones. Logan grumbled, popping his claws out and taking position by the door, Hawkeye and Black Widow moving to flank him. Open it. Opening, clear. The group descended into the depths of the asteroid. The door into the tower vanished as a blast of red energy slammed through it, then the attackers charged through, meeting the disordered acolytes like an avalanche slamming into a brick wall. At the head of the attackers, Hulk, Thor, and Captain America fought like the well-oiled trio that experience and training had forged them to be, with Cyclops and War Machine backing them up, Cyclops' optic blasts hammering anyone who tried to flank them while War Machine's missiles curved round the lead trio to home in on their enemies. Rogue brought up the rear, ready to copy the powers of anyone she could grab. From above, the sound of shattering windows, stressed metal, and thunderclaps marked Iron Man and Storm's entry into the chaotic maelstrom of combat. On the top floor, behind the shields hastily levitated into place by Magneto, the three people there worked almost feverishly as they tried to finish their self-imposed mission. Capacitors are up to 90%. TechMage reported. I've diverted power from all non-essential systems, we'll be able to achieve full planetary coverage in 10 minutes. How much do we have now? Magneto asked as he maneuvered a metal plate to cover a patch glowing red-hot from an attack. 90% population, about 78% planetary surface. Chrome stated from his station. Sir, I suggest we begin activation now. Once we have the primary and secondary systems warmed up, it's only a matter of how much power we can accumulate before we activate the evolution wave. The tower seemed to tremble and a thin layer of dust descended, dislodged from the ceiling. An excellent suggestion, Chrome. Magneto said, moving another metal plate to cover a gap created when a bolt of lightning had struck and warped two of the shields. Techmage, begin the primary activation sequence. Chrome, bring up the secondaries and ensure they remain stable. Yes, Lord Magneto. Magneto turned his attention to the more pressing matter of halting the attackers as he pulled one of the shields back in place, forcing it to obey his will rather than that of the telekinetic trying to pull it away from the tower. Shit. Pietro leapt back as 6 familiar claws carved through the primary entrance to the power core. The other people in the room stared at him for a moment, then they reacted as the door collapsed, revealing the growling form of Wolverine and the others arrayed behind him. Vought instantly started giving orders. Avalanche, destabilize the corridor. Blob, block the door. Pietro, hit and fade. Sven, Harlan, Eric, fuse now. Pietro accelerated to avoid an arc of thrown bone spikes, only to slam into the wall as his feet hit a slippery patch. Slick bomb. Mystique said with a smirk as she threw several more into the room. Move too fast and you won't be able to stop. After what you did to my daughter, I knew that I'd have a reckoning with you again. Pietro scrambled away from the enraged blue-skinned woman, then Vought appeared in front of him, solidifying out of mist. Mystique, I knew that you'd abandoned the cause, but joining Xavier? How could you? Family. Mystique said in a quiet yet intense voice as she moved to confront the acolyte. Thank goodness that Magneto doesn't have any flying acolytes. Iron Man noted as he evaded one of the flying sheets of metal orbiting the tower. Storm, far above them, sent another overcharged lightning bolt down, liquefying several of the flying shards as it hammered the tower once again. His power, it's strong. Jean gasped as she used her telekinesis to grab a sharpened metal pole and fling it at the tower. The pole penetrated almost halfway before it stopped and warped, folding down to lie along the hair-thin gap between two of the protective plates. Damn. Iron Man unleashed a laser barrage that scorched several of the blocked windows. I hope the others are doing better than we are. We just need to keep Magneto's attention on us. Jean shouted, ducking a flying guillotine that would have decapitated her had she not moved. Keep trying. Another lightning bolt slammed into the tower. The tower shook and trembled as another blast hammered at it, except this one was from below. Magneto snarled as the floor ruptured, allowing thin beams of red energy to slam through. Tell me that the wave generator is ready. Final stabilization in progress, external arrays deploying now. Chrome shouted, ducking as another sliver of red energy lanced up beside him before Magneto could rearrange the metal flooring to block it once more. We can fire in 50 seconds. Scott. Kitty yelped into her headset. The device has been smashed. We're trying to get to the controls to force a core shutdown, but the Brotherhood and 6 acolytes are here, and they're too tough. Wolverine's barely holding against a giant one that formed from 3 of them, and cuts down. A body slammed into the wall and Kitty leaned through the bulkhead she was sheltering behind and pulled someone through. Black Widow just got KO'd, we're holding, but only just. Understood, Kitty. Scott replied and Kitty's eyes widened as the sound of battle leaked through the link. We're getting through up here, we should be able to, oh shit. Kitty opened her mouth to ask what had happened, then her gaze fixed on a nearby repeater display. Evolution wave commencing. She whispered. No. No. And so it begins. Magneto intoned with a triumphant smile. The gem of Cyttorak stood proud in the middle of a complex array of technology and carefully placed kryptonite shards, each carved and polished to reflect and enhance the aura of the gem, the aura that had already granted one man incredible power and was now being used as the focal point of a machine intended to bestow new capabilities on unaccountable millions. The aura grew and flared, turning darker in a way that would have horrified anyone who knew about what it was meant to do, and what it was actually doing. The arcs of power radiating from it and striking specifically emplaced conductors made the area completely lethal to anyone who might have intended to set foot in the projection array. The power built up, reaching levels never before achieved by any human or mutant, then the situation changed. Mine. Techmage stared in horror at his readouts while Chrome gazed without comprehension at one of the screens before him. Several explosions rocked the asteroid, but neither of them could move, both trying to understand just how one single factor, something that could not have happened in any rational universe, had just occurred. Magneto was more controlled, and he recognized the figure standing in the shattered wreckage of his life's triumph, although the recognition did nothing for his disbelief. Juggernaut. Alarms blared and red lights flashed in warning as surges of power arced back through systems never designed to carry such voltages. Bolts of electricity arced through various rooms while explosions sent clouds of shrapnel hurtling across halls and down corridors. Run. Logan sprinted after the others as they retreated as fast as they could, the dazed Black Widow slung across his shoulders. Ahead of them, a door opened and a young scared girl emerged, shouting something. Without breaking step, Hawkeye scooped her up into his arms. Piotr. What the? Mystique started, then she saw Hawkeye's burden and her eyes widened in recognition. Ilyana. Raven. What's happening? Where is my brother? The asteroid is falling apart, we're getting you to safety. Mystique gasped, shifting Kit's unconscious form slightly as they took the corner without slowing. I don't know where Piotr is, but I have a friend who can help to find him afterwards. If anyone can survive this, Piotr can. Less talk, more run. Logan snarled as a gout of flame missed him by mere inches. Evacuate. Magneto said almost calmly, causing the other two to stare at him. We cannot win, take the pods and escape. Go to one of the safe houses and wait for new orders. For a long moment, no one moved, then Chrome reacted. My lord, are you certain? In our moment of triumph. We have lost this one. Magneto said quietly. I will not see my acolytes die in a futile attempt to salvage some sort of honor from defeat. Look at the damage monitors, Asteroid M is doomed. Order the evacuation, Chrome, then escape while you can. Chrome closed his eyes and nodded even as another explosion rocked the tower. It shall be as you command. Magneto turned away and his gaze focused beyond the metal walls. Charles, what was so vital that you unleashed your greatest enemy like that? Why would you stoop to such things? What did you know that I did not? Chapter 24, Rising Hope. All personnel evacuate immediately. The asteroid has become unstable. System crash imminent. All personnel evacuate immediately. As the looped message echoed through the asteroid, war turned into chaos as everyone tried to disengage and flee, taking those who could not move with them, all except for one man who tried to fight his way past. Ilyana. Cyclops activated his COMM. Mystique, we have a problem, who is Ilyana? She is Colossus' younger sister, a non-mutant. We have her and are getting her to the Blackbird. Why? Colossus. Cyclops shouted. Ilyana is being taken to safety, come with us if you want to be with her. The metal man stared at him, then nodded. I come, but if you lie, I crush you. Fred. Lance. This way. Blob and Avalanche sprinted down the passageway, dodging the broken rock falling from the ceiling. Where are we going? Small hangar, one of the acolytes mentioned that there were extended-range planes there. Toad gasped as they rounded the corner. I say we grab one and get back to Bayville. And Pietro? Lance asked. Hell with him. Toad snarled. Bastard got us to betray Mystique, she was the first one who believed in me. He can crash with the asteroid for all I care. Fred and Lance exchanged glances, then Lance spoke. Good point. Yeah, now come on. I can't believe that he grabbed Juggernaut and threw him onto the asteroid. Fury fumed. Sure, it worked, but now that Juggernaut's got the gem again, there's no telling what he'll do. Incoming comm request from Superman. One of the agents shouted and Fury stabbed at his console. Fury here. Fury, it's Superman. I can see multiple explosions on the asteroid, I think my long shot paid off. Hell of a long shot. Fury grunted and Superman laughed across the link. I know, I had to throw him a full kilometer for it to work. I still can't get near the asteroid, but it looks like they're evacuating. I've seen 3 planes and several gliders already. Once everyone regroups, I need Thor's help. I believe he promised me a boon. I have a promise to keep. Fury closed his eye in resignation. Why do I think I am not going to like this? Okay, how long before we can return Juggernaut to Alpha Penitentiary? We can't, not until he does something deserving of it. Superman instantly responded. That was part of the bargain with him. A new start, elsewhere. Anyway, your other agents are arriving, may I ask you to collect all the kryptonite? Wait a moment. Fury said slowly. You want me, someone you have no real reason to trust, to take control of the only known substance that can kill you? How do you know I won't use it to force you to join the Avengers? Steve. Came the instant reply, and Fury found himself nodding. Good point, but I want the plans for a kryptonite reactor with shielding. If it's small enough, I'll install it onto the helicarrier. Replacing the nuclear reactor with something smaller, less dangerous, and far more powerful. Superman said, following his logic. An excellent idea, I'll have the plans sent to you as soon as possible. And to answer other questions you might have, knowing that S.H.I.E.L.D. is using the kryptonite to power its helicarrier means I know the stuff isn't being turned into bullets for criminals. Furthermore, I'm not certain how much kryptonite came to Earth, but this has to be most of it, reducing the normal risk to me. And since you have the perfect weapon to use against me, and you know that I know it, you can relax in the knowledge that I'm not going to do something stupid like try to take over the world. Fury half smiled. Understood and agreed. More operatives are on their way and we managed to catch a tailwind. Will you still be there by the time we arrive? No, once I've fulfilled my part of the bargain, my team are headed back to the Institute. I'd suggest keeping this whole thing under wraps, we don't want people to panic. Agreed. Fury said instantly. The knowledge that a group of mutants almost wiped out all of humanity would be a very bad thing. I'll bury the story. Fury out. Thor. Superman shouted as the Asgardian exited the Blackbird and looked around. The blonde god brightened and strode over to him, grinning with the after effects of battle. Superman. Thor shouted, grabbing the black-haired man and embracing him hard enough that a normal human would have suffered from cracked ribs. 'Twas a truly magnificent battle. I thank thee for the chance to prove myself once again. Thor, we need to talk. Superman said, leading the god away from the others. Do you know anything about the gem of Sidorak? Thor frowned as he searched his memory. Aye, 'tis one of the ancient demon-forged relics, one beyond use by those of Asgard. My father knoweth of its powers, why dost thou ask? Can you take myself and Juggernaut to Asgard briefly? Superman asked, avoiding the question. We need to speak to your father. They did what? Thor, Superman, and Juggernaut have gone to Asgard, sir. Captain America repeated. They were speaking quietly, then Thor raised his hammer and called for Heimdall to open the Bifrost Bridge. A moment later, they were gone. What the hell are they playing at? Fury wondered and Steve shrugged as a transport plane flew overhead. Couldn't say, sir. But they took the gem of Sidorak with them. They did what? Wow. Kane said quietly, staring at the giant city seemingly floating in space before them. I'm not often impressed, but, wow. Behold Asgard. Thor proclaimed, greatest city in the 9 realms and my home. Come. As the duo followed the eager god, Juggernaut turned slightly. So, you think that this will work? Thor said that as the last of a race that they respected, I could ask for a boon. I needed your help. You don't want anyone trying to seize the gem for any reason, if it still grants you its power despite being in a different realm, then storing it in a city of gods who can't use it but will happily protect it from everybody else. Juggernaut nodded, then looked at the floating city. Bloody long bridge. Hey, Thor. Could Superman fly us in? Thor blinked. I see no reason why not, although we should still meet first with Heimdall. Superman nodded and lifted himself above the bridge. Offering his arms, he let Thor and Juggernaut grab his wrists, then he flew forwards, accelerating quickly so that the rippling bridge of light seemed to blur. Ahead of them, the city grew, then they flew into a tunnel. Superman lowered the others down as they emerged and found themselves confronted by a huge black man with golden armor. Heimdall. Good to see you again. Thor declaimed, clapping the taller man on his shoulder. May I introduce Kal of the House of El, the last son of Krypton and Cain Marko, the partial avatar of Sidorak. Though he has the power, his mind is his own. Heimdall lifted one eyebrow as Juggernaut frowned in confusion. Partial avatar. Indeed. Thor explained. Hadst thou bonded fully with the gem of Sidorak, thine body wouldst have been but a vessel for Sidorak itself, and thine mind and soul shattered, destroyed for all time. Juggernaut stared at him in shock. What? How thou didst avoid that fate, I do not know. It is quite simple. Odin said, leaning back in his throne. Your spiral of life contains a portion that, if it had been activated, would have given you power but removed the protection you enjoy. In its passive state, it protected you from possession, thus granting you the power of Sidorak, without being controlled by it. The rage you feel is but an echo of Sidorak's fury at having failed to take an avatar but still having lost his power. Cain stared at the large, red gemstone in his hands. So, had I been an active mutant like my brother, I'd be an unliving puppet for an ancient demon. Odin confirmed. Cain shuddered. What the hell do I do with this? You keep the power, but let us safeguard the gem itself, thus preventing Sidorak from ever gaining a new form. Odin said. I have several vaults to hold dangerous objects, I can change one so that only you may open it. Once I do that, not even I shall be able to gain access. As for the power, I can create a stand for the gem, an enchanted one that will still siphon the power to you, but protect you from the manipulations of Sidorak. And if I want to return to Earth? Cain asked curiously. Odin shrugged. The bond, once created, cannot be broken, regardless of what realm you are in, unless one of the bond anchors are destroyed. Since your soul would be one and the stand the other, you need not worry. Juggernaut frowned for several minutes, then nodded. All right. Better to rely on a god than a demon. And your promise? Superman asked, causing Juggernaut to laugh harshly. After all this? Hell, I don't ever want to see my little bro again, but if my powers had been active, I'd be dead and a demon would be using my body. We have a truce. My word on it. Excellent. Clark said, holding out his hand. Cain took it as the assembled Asgardians looked on with approval. Odin leaned forwards. Superman, this action is not the boon we owe you, Sidorak has long been an enemy of Asgard. If you wish something else, ask. With your permission, Superman said, bowing slightly, I would rather wait until the gem of the demon has been safely stored. Agreed. Odin said, rising from his throne. If thou wouldst follow me. Thanks for that. Cain said, shaking Superman's hand, then Thor's. I feel lots calmer now. Heimdall shall send you back to Earth. Thor said, and Superman smiled. But he shall not send you to America. I'd prefer for you not to be tempted to continue your vendetta. He's promised to send you to a large tropical island, so you may want to work on your tan while you are there. Juggernaut snorted with laughter. Yeah, maybe. Well, drop in if you are anywhere near the neighborhood. Maybe we can have another spar. The bridge is open. Heimdall said from behind them, and Juggernaut nodded his thanks. Well, time for another long walk. Hey, Blue, got a way to make it faster for me, what are you doing? Put me duo. Thor failed to contain his mirth as Superman flung Juggernaut out over the bridge, directly into the dimensional vortex. Even Heimdall smiled slightly. He made it, I am closing the bridge. Where do you wish to go? Xavier's mansion. Superman said, picking up a long, rectangular stone inscribed with runes that seemed to shimmer with an unearthly glow. I need to put this somewhere safe. Once done, I shall activate it from here. Heimdall said, looking sideways at an alcove where an identical stone rectangle was standing in a bronze-colored frame which held it against the wall. The bridge is opened, thou mayest depart. May your path lead to greatness. May your enemies flee in fear of your names. Superman replied as he started to fly towards the dimensional vortex at the end of the bridge. The two gods watched him go, then Thor spoke. An excellent parting wish, I shall remember it. Heimdall smirked. Brother. Ilyana. Colossus scooped his sister up and swung her round before settling her in the crook of his arm. How do you feel? I have some medicine here. Medicine? Logan interrupted, earning several startled looks from the people around them. What's wrong with her? My sister suffers from a rare condition that saps her strength and makes her ill. Colossus said slowly. Magneto promised to find a cure, that is why I followed him. He provided medical care for her. A cure, huh? Logan asked. Flyboy, wherever he is, brought back Cap over there from the dead. I'm sure that he can heal your sister. If he does, then I shall forever stand with you. Colossus said as Illyana hugged him. Logan. Evan said, walking over from where he had been talking to his aunt, what was all that about? Doesn't matter for now, kid. Logan said gruffly. Tell the others we're heading back. Fury can clean this lot up himself. Evan nodded and jogged back to his aunt. The helicarrier slowed in from the command bridge. Fury looked down at the smoking remains of Asteroid M. A cargo helicopter, multiple pallets slung underneath, flew past, heading for a distant ship. Report. The area is secure and we have already collected most of the Kryptonian tech. Iron Man said, his uplinks giving him a real-time overview of the operation. Quite a bit of the kryptonite was vaporized in the explosions, but we have at least half of what was reported. Superman has already sent several plans. Once we get a better idea of how much kryptonite we've collected, we can start building the new reactor for the carrier. Excellent. Fury said, watching the agents below as they fixed ropes and ladders to allow them to explore the half-ruined superstructures. And the acolytes. We managed to capture almost half of them, the rest managed to escape. Iron Man replied. No sign of Magneto. And there probably won't be, not for quite a while. Fury stated. At least we've removed his ability to try again. The gem is in Asgard, the kryptonite in our hands and his asteroid is down. He'll have to rebuild before he can do anything else. We've won this round. Chapter 25, New Day. Illyana. Brother. Colossus grinned as Illyana, showing energy that she had been lacking for years, leapt off the bed and into his arms. While I'd like to do several follow-up scans to ensure that the treatment worked properly, the chances of anything going wrong are minimal. Clark smiled. Thank you. Colossus grinned, reaching out with his free hand to clap Clark on his shoulder. I had almost given up hope, thank you. I have set aside a small suite for you and your sister. Xavier said from behind them. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a living/dining room with kitchenette, although you'll probably want to join us for our meals. Martha is a truly excellent cook. Thank you. Colossus repeated, tears of joy trickling down his cheeks. Welcome to the X-Men, Colossus. Xavier said, offering his hand. Colossus took it without hesitation. I hope you like it here, although I have an offer to make. I've managed to track down and contact several new mutants, teenagers, and having another mentor around to help look after them. Colossus nodded. Of course. I look after little sister, how much harder can it be? Ow. Illyana folded her arms and glared at the brother that she had just slapped while everyone else somehow managed not to laugh. The crashed plane slowly slid to a halt, coming to rest against a tree and leaving a long trail of torn vegetation marking its attempt at landing. After several minutes had passed, 2 figures, one significantly larger than the other, pulled themselves out and collapsed on the forest floor. A third figure jumped out and stood proudly on the remains of the small fuselage. Heh. You see? I told you I could get us back. The large figure rolled over with a groan while the smaller one fixed him with a glare. Shut it, Toad. You almost killed us with that landing. But I didn't, whoa. The ground shook, dislodging Todd from his perch and sending him tumbling to the ground, causing him to land by one of the now detached wheels. Watcha do that for? Look, once we can walk, we'll head back home and decide what to do. For now, shut it. And where the hell did you get your pilot's license? License? Who needs a license? Todd scoffed. I used my Med-Arcade skills. Lance and Fred exchanged a long look, then Fred slumped back down. We can kill him later. Yeah. Hey. Final tally, sir. The agent said, handing an e-pad over. 1 primary console, 2 intact scanner drones, 2 partially disassembled drones. We think we've managed to get most of it accounted for, some of it got severely damaged during the assault. We've also managed to recover almost 70 cubic meters of the green material, kryptonite, and are transporting it to the primary base for processing. Excellent. Fury said. Cutter, your report please. No sign of Magneto or any of the escaped acolytes at this time, sir. The dark-haired woman replied. Preliminary interrogations of the captured have proven less than useful. They refuse to say or do anything that they see as a betrayal. It could take some time to develop any useful intelligence. Understood. Fury noted. Keep me informed. Of course, sir. You wanted to speak to me, Trask. Yes, Mr. Creed. Bolivar said, meeting the gaze of the leader of the Friends of Humanity. My sources in S.H.I.E.L.D. have given me an unusual piece of technology and several bits of information you should be aware of. It would seem that Superman isn't a mutant after all. Not a mutant. Creed said slowly. Interesting. What is he? An enhanced human. An alien, sir, apparently the last of his kind. Graydon seemed to darken with rage. So he came here hoping to repopulate his race using ours. Unacceptable. We did manage to get a sample of his technology, sir. Bolivar said quickly. A drone, one containing some very impressive computational crystals. My scientists are already working on how to duplicate them, sir. Each crystal is the equivalent of a low-level supercomputer, with a processing speed almost an order of magnitude faster than anything we have. When we put one of the chips into the prototype, its combat efficiency rose by over 300%. Graydon Creed froze, then his gaze sharpened. Incredible. Technology like that is wasted on aliens. How many of these crystals are there? 11, sir. We are still examining the rest of the technology for more additions to our arsenal. The sensors look interesting, but they seem to contain and rely on several odd elements that we cannot get. Graydon nodded. Use 6 of those crystals in the first flight of the Sentinels, send the others to the research stations to see if they can be duplicated. Humanity will prevail. Bolivar Trask snapped to attention. Yes, sir. Humanity will prevail. Father, do you want me to do anything? Not at this time, Pietro. Magneto replied, looking out of the window of the chalet at the looming mountains. We must wait for some of the fuss to die down. To move too early is to be captured and all our work will be set to naught. Like it already, oh hell. Dad. Magneto turned and saw Pietro staring at the television. Looking at the screen, his fists clenched as he saw Superman lifting a collapsed crane off several vehicles, allowing the emergency services access to the injured. Dad, how can he be alive? I trapped him in that collapsing dimension. If he had got out, he would have been part of the team that tried to destroy the future of the mutants. Magneto mused. For him to have waited, he must either have been incapacitated, and I see no sign of injury, or he's a clone. Is that possible? I see no other solution. Magneto sighed. We may need to secure some of his DNA and create a clone of him ourselves. Raise it to be loyal to us and we would have a great weapon. I vowed never to contact him again, but it seems that we may need the services of Sinestro. The hell? The trio stood before the smoking wreckage of what was once a house. This isn't good. Fred rumbled. Where do we live now? I don't know. Lance said slowly, then he spat in disgust. Fucking Magneto. Never should have joined him. He's really screwed us over. I'm pleased to hear you say that. A familiar voice purred and all three spun round. Mystique. Mystique smirked at Todd's yelp. You have a choice. Go your own way, join Xavier, or come with me. I have a new house ready. You chose to return to Bayville, Pietro did not. I think we can assume that you no longer wish to follow his lead. And Magneto? Lance asked slowly. Can go to hell? Mystique snarled before regaining control of herself. The trio exchanged glances, then Lance spoke. Okay, I'm in, for now. Same here. What he said? Excellent. Mystique smiled. If you'll follow me, You can get settled in. How long will you be gone? Xavier asked, looking up at the javelin as Clark replaced the access hatch and floated down. Probably several weeks. Clark said. Now I've got the crystal matrix properly aligned, I think it's time to return to Krypton for a look round. According to records, there was a sister planet named Argo, about the size of our moon, which had several domed cities on it. If even one of them survived. I see, and I understand. Xavier smiled. I wish you luck on your journey. Have you already said goodbye to the others? He has. Martha said from behind them, but we decided to see you off, anyway. Thanks, Mom. Clark grinned, giving her a quick kiss on the cheek, then moving round the group, distributing handshakes and hugs impartially. I'll see you all when I get back. Kane Marco crested the hill and stopped, staring at the scene before him. The shoreside village was the first he had seen since Heimdall had sent him back to Earth, and he still didn't know where he was, but the sight before him was proof beyond doubt that it wasn't any of the countries he deemed civilized. Over half the huts were damaged or on fire, with corpses lying around, but the true horror was in the middle where a gang of men clad as soldiers were tying up the widows and daughters of the dead, stripping their clothing off as they did so and laughing at the wailing and crying of the females. That is not right. Clenching his fists, Juggernaut strode towards the village. One of the soldiers saw him coming and called out a warning, but Juggernaut simply accelerated, loping towards the scum who would all die if he had anything to do with it. Bullets bounced off him, then he was amongst them, grabbing one of the trucks and swinging it up and over as he tore into them with a fury that owed nothing to Sidorak. After the last of the soldiers was dead, Kane started to untie the women. As he worked, he ignored the rivulets of blood spreading across the road, heading towards the damaged sign, the sign which had only a fragment of the writing on it still visible. Welcome to Sunny Gino. Check the description for the links to the author.